and welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au, and I have with me the amazing co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Anna Osmanskaya.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Chris. Great pleasure to be on this program. And I really can't wait for the next episode. In the previous episode, we crossed the bridge from Skeleton Scherzo of Beethoven, right to the sunshine of the beginning of the last movement of the magnificent Fifth Symphony. I'm really excited to be a host for today's show.
Yeah, and we'll be hosting the part 10, the second last part of the documentary of Beethoven's Symphony No. 5, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, and produced by the amazing architects of music. This is just an incredible episode, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what's coming up.
This is the result of absolutely amazing collaboration. Usually artists are very solitary people, or at least that's the historic image of it. But something like this film's production takes a large team of really bullheaded artists, which all have their own idea. So what drives this ability of artists to collaborate towards a larger project is our all shared passion to connecting musicians and audiences in real-time performances, music news, and live programs from around the entire globe.
There are 4 themes in this exposition, so here they are. The main theme, which is in 3 parts. The first part is this. Built on a straight C major triad. Its second part is a dashing, rising scale, which may or may not be related to the Scherzo's trio theme. I don't know, maybe. And third, an exuberant phrase built on a rising sixth, which has a definite folk-like character. Then there is a transition in unison and octaves, and it's built on a rhythmic unit of 4 rapid notes. 4 notes, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Sound familiar? And this leads to the second main theme, still in C major, which might as well have had patriotic lyrics written to it, which Beethoven then extends. And another transition now, which also uses a 4-note motive, which modulates to the dominant key of G major, where we encounter our third theme, which is also built on a basic unit of 4 notes. Okay, that was slower than it should be. Another transition then, and we have our 4th and final theme of the exposition. It's also in G major, and it will serve as the slightly more lyrical theme here, and it's scored more lightly than anything that we've heard thus far. And it's actually quite expressive. And it cadences in an almost Mozartian way. And this 4th theme is the most lyrical, but there's also an intensity in these accented chromatic notes. And this theme is repeated then forte by the entire orchestra. That's a quick rundown of the exposition's 4 principal themes. 2 in C major, 2 in G major. Here now is the exposition, and I'll call them out as we go. The first theme. And its second part. And its third part, the folk-like motive. extended. And here is the four-note transition figure. And the second theme, like a patriotic song. Now it's extended. And its four-note motive as a transition. And the third theme, and its bass line, which will later become the melody. The bass line. And all of this based on the four-note motive. And our fourth theme, the somewhat lyrical and chromatic one. And a little Mozartian cadence. Repeated now by the full orchestra. And moving to F minor. And we have almost arrived now at the central development section, but I should mention another important fact about this symphony. To increase the impact of this finale, Beethoven augments the orchestra by adding a piccolo to the top of the woodwind choir, a contrabassoon to increase the weight at the bottom, and, most tellingly, 3 trombones in the brass section, which add sonority and breadth to the overall effect. They were used in opera and church music, but rarely in concert, and never all 5 of them in one work. And as we move into the development section now, Beethoven focuses on the third theme, the one that had a vigorous four-note motive to it, like so. And its gentle second phrase, which features this bass line, which you barely noticed. You add the melody over it, and it's this. Seemingly insignificant, this bass line, until Beethoven begins to promote the bass line to melodic status. We then hear it forcefully in the cellian bass and contrabassoon, until it emerges as a theme on its own in the trombones and bassoons. And the four-note motive is scurrying around. Then Beethoven breaks it down into just its first 2 notes. We've been hearing, but now he breaks it down like so. Which leads to a truly thrilling moment with this new theme, which had been the bass line, now as a triumphant chorale in the woodwinds, to which the brass add, and the violins are dashing around with the rapid four-note motive that had been the melody. And this is Beethoven's brilliant new approach to symphonic writing at work. He takes the third theme, which was, and its bass line. He takes it all apart and he reassembles or reassigns these things to grow a new episode in his development section. There is also a report that suggests that Beethoven was using another well-known revolutionary song at this point in the finale, a song composed by Claude Rouget de Lille, the man who wrote La Marseillaise. I'm not sure. I have a difficult time finding that motive here. But there's something very significant, perhaps, going on in a programmatic, symbolic way when Beethoven takes the formerly lowly bass line, yes, the lowly bass line that functions down here, and the sort of flighty, dashing upper part, and he exchanges them. Now the lowly, the lower class is perhaps now elevated to the upper class and takes prominence, while the formerly flighty, dashing voice is now assigned a subsidiary role. I don't know. I said I'm not going to go looking for obscure things here, but it's very, very interesting the way Beethoven takes this melody and its bass line and switches their roles. And since groundbreaking events seem to occur at regular intervals in this work, we're headed for another one now. Let's back up to that great passage we just looked at, with the third theme and its bass line repurposed. But we're headed into a grand climax in the dominant key of G. And it's a big one. But listen where it goes. That unexpected series of repeated G's in the violins. Very interesting way to end this imposing passage. Yes? And these repeated G's lead to this. A shadowy recall of the scherzo, the third movement, right in the middle of the finale. Maybe not quite as revolutionary as it seems, since we saw in our minuet episode how Haydn did this same thing in his Symphony number 46 from 1775. Incidentally, I mistakenly said it predated Beethoven's Fifth by 50 years, when it was actually more like 35 years. Still, it's impossible to know if Beethoven was aware of Haydn's number 46. Certainly the general public had never heard such a thing, the third movement reappearing in the middle of the finale. So Beethoven now uses this opportunity to rewrite his scherzo to suit his architectural plan. He locks into the four-note motif, recalling the horn march, and he uses it to gradually build his way out of the scherzo, back into the finale. The clarinets, violas, and horns repeat the motif in G major, the dominant chord, while above the flute, oboe, and bassoon outlined a dominant seventh chord, that is G major, with an F added on top. So we get this. Under which the timpani enter sort of prematurely on the note C, the tonic note, like so, anticipating the resolution of the dominant G to C. And so we get a condensed version of that brilliant transition to the finale that we heard before, the one that Berlioz said drove the audience nuts, which now leads to the finale's recapitulation. So structurally, the recall of the scherzo functions beautifully as an episode in Beethoven's central development section.
Well, that was quite a masterclass in sort of composition writing, and not just revolutionary in its conception, but also really brilliant in its way of bringing previous themes into the mix. And yeah, there's like 4 themes, and then he adds another one from the third movement.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
This is back to the name of the project, music architecture. And
Yeah.
it has a lot to do with the architecture, how you build it. Well, we're bringing the window from the basement to the top, and then exchanging the roles. So it's of course a physical architecture, and just like you said, Chris, it's all about constructing the tools and the compositional technique to support the actual story. And there's so much in that story. It's like a huge novel, that symphony. And just like a novelist, Beethoven creates the characters and their development and the situations. in which the characters behave certain ways. The only difference is the language. The language, of course, of a novel is spoken language, and the language here Beethoven uses is the musical language. And the musical language has that incredible symbolism to it, and of course allows people to assign different meaning, just like Larry Rapchak mentioned in one of the parts of this episode that, well, I'm not going to go look for obscure facts in here, but the obvious fact is right there, whether it had connection to the actual revolutionary movement or not, is almost irrelevant, because the meaning and the concept of the reversed roles, what was a lowly, barely noticeable, becomes to the forefront. Don't we all experience situations like that in life? It's broader life application. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. We mentioned 2 episodes ago about the idea of leitmotif, and I'm taking a leaf out of what you just said in terms of the symbolism, because I think it's really important for us to remember the symbolism of the bum, right? This thing keeps coming back and it's transformed. We mentioned maybe it's the villain, maybe it's fate, maybe it's something to do with death knocking on the door, or something ominous. And yet he brings it back in this last movement as a reminder, hey, don't forget that, amongst the glory and the brilliance of C major, there's this still niggling feeling that there's something ominous still present, maybe, or hasn't been fully transformed into this movement. And I like what he said about this transformation of a seemingly insignificant bass line promoted to melodic status until it emerges as a theme of its own. All right, and of course, like you said, it's this symbolism of something insignificant seemingly that becomes like maybe an idea that seemingly doesn't seem very important, that emerges as a brilliant thing that takes over the world. But it also just adds so much meaning. I really, really love how he talks about it, like Larry, but also how Beethoven is writing this into the music. And it's analyzed at very different levels. I think a casual listener wouldn't think of this sort of symbolism, but as a someone, that's why I say it's a masterclass in composition, because as a composer you could study this and it becomes something.
Oh, absolutely! It's a masterclass in composition. It's also a very engaging and very charming masterclass in listening.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's so much more one can derive and enrich themselves from listening to masterpieces or reading masterpieces in literature, when certain things sort of unfold, like peeling off the onion, and you get more and more out of it, the more you're led by someone like Larry Rapchak through the details of it. You might not even notice where this theme came from. It's a captivating theme at the top, and it's signifying the glory and the the light coming out of darkness. But where it came from and how Beethoven built that experience of getting there, if you notice it, it's almost like noticing things on a trail. If someone points out, look at this mushroom, look at this light, look at this ray of light, look at this plant or something, the journey becomes filled with events which Beethoven built into the symphony, created from scratch, from nothing. These were his ideas. They were not on the paper there. And getting familiar with those ideas built into the texture of the symphony, of course, makes the whole journey a lot more significant and a lot more enriching, and communicates a lot more. And I wanted also to mention how Beethoven pre-programmed a lot of this. He brings in new instruments and everything in there. For some people it may be an eye-opening. For me, at least, it was when I first got to study in depth the music composition, how all of the elements are brought in by the composer with a purpose. How purposeful everything the composer writes on the script is. It all comes kind of backwards, comes from the goal, from the purpose, which first set by the story which the composer wants to tell. So it's not an accident that Beethoven brought the trombones and the bassoons and all this augmented orchestration, because he gives particular roles for those instruments in bringing out the particular themes. So he assigns the color of the theme, the function of the theme, to particular effect that each instrument can produce, and it does. The effect of it is very emotionally striking. Beethoven is, of course, one of the epic composers.
Yeah, the innovation within orchestration that we talked about and you mentioned isn't, just to summarize, not a innovation based on novelty. It's an innovation based on purpose, like you say, is to elucidate some sort of meaning or breadth or the depth in which he wanted to convey. I like how it's not the first time you hear, 5 trombones or something. You can hear in opera and perhaps in, what did he say, choral music or something of that sort. But hey, all of a sudden, bringing this into the symphony, he must have had a different idea or must have heard it somewhere else. And I want to tie this back to narration and how we always think of in stories when something insignificant is introduced, but later on comes back to serve something really important as something that's just incredible. And I wonder what that is. And I think musically, Beethoven really appreciates that. He takes something very simple, a little structure, a little rhythmic motive, and he puts it everywhere and develops it and makes it something that's inspiring. But as someone who enjoys story, but also it's significant because if you're constantly hearing the same rhythmic motif, it ties the whole piece together. Mm-hmm. Everything feels like it's more well put together. It doesn't seem all random. It feels like, oh no, there's something that ties it all together, seeming, without any sort of interruption. And yet it's different. And yet there's innovation. And yet there's something amazing to hear each time and new.
Yeah, that motive to me in the symphony serves the function of a protagonist. Probably, it's the same character who goes through various episodes and transformation. Clearly, this is a transformative novel. So that's a character which goes from one state of existence through the transformative events of the symphony, different movements, to the glorious ending of it. And we're still not at the end. We still have one more episode. One thing, very small element in there. There's just so much Beethoven put in there, but one for me is very significant is that mix of a dominant chord has that unsteady leading feeling. It always wants to resolve into the tonic, and Beethoven puts the tonic bass underneath it, and that cluster. Those two harmonies are at inherent conflict with each other, because one is supposed to resolve into another. When you put them at the same time as a one vertical, that creates a really clashing sound of the harmony. And that's probably why the contemporaries of Beethoven often pointed out that he had hearing loss, so he probably couldn't really hear that it sounds dirty. But in fact, when it's orchestrated the way Beethoven did and assigned each note in that vertical to a particular instrument, that cluster doesn't sound dirty, it just sounds very dramatic and very tense. And expansive.
It feels like
huge.
There's something what I love about dissonance is not just for the tension. I mean, there is tension, but it's not just so singular in its dimension. I think it's got more to offer than just tension. This whole idea of dissonance or things that kind of build, it makes us feel enlarged. It inflates the space of the musical sphere. It kind of allows you to feel like there's some kind of journey that you're going on and you're moving through something until you finally arrived. So I think it's the way he does that is brilliant. And I sometimes wonder how and what the premiere sounded like. Maybe if not all the instruments were perfectly in tune and, things were, played properly, like if you go to the Berlin or Vienna Philharmonic now, like I wonder if I really wonder what Beethoven would have really thought if he heard the piece in its true glory. I think a lot of it was just in his head the whole time, and I don't know, he doesn't have Sibelius or Finale to hear this, on the computer, not even that. So he just probably hears it on the piano or on the keyboard he's working on. But I wonder how he would feel if he could hear the kind of recordings we have of these masterpieces. Then the audience would be like, oh, there's so many dissonances, or they'll actually feel that there's an expanse, yeah.
And I have a question actually to our audience about this orchestration and the sounds and all that. Well, of course, the symphony was written, 200 years ago, and we are still using the same instrument, the same instrumentation, and all over the world. That symphony is one of the primary programming piece, of course, for its enormous enjoyment for everyone to listen. But if Beethoven was living today, I would like to hear from anyone who is interested to pitch in their ideas. What kind of instruments and what kind of music do you think he would be writing today, given the 200 years of a change? I don't want to say exactly development. I don't know if we are developing music from bad to better, because there was so much great music written 300, 400, 500 years ago. But it's changing, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and I really, that's a really good question. I really, really want to know.
And Chris, I'm not putting you on the hot plate with that question, but maybe in the next episode you give your thoughts on it.
All right, we'll see. We'll see what I come up with. And with that, I want to give a huge thank and a round of applause to our team at Virtual Concert Halls, to New Media Productions, the architects of music, of course, and of course, like Larry Rapchak, the way he narrates and fills this piece with such intrigue, and he provides details, but in a way that's very interesting and gives it a different dimension to not even just any casual listener, but even for people who are musicians like the two of us who really do music
for living.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be blunt about it. We do music for living.
Absolutely. And so it's brilliant that they're able to do that.
But definitely, if anyone would like to have their own imagination reignited and their own curiosity reignited, to discover and to explore this and to get the more out of listening to the grand masterpieces of Beethoven, these programs are definitely for you.
Wonderful. Please feel free to check out our websites and all our other resources for ways to be involved, right?
Yes, and please check out our Music and Musicians daily live show. We present artists, concerts, educational music, film projects. If you're interested to be featured on our show, please get in touch and learn how you can apply, how you can submit your proposal to be invited and featured and presented on our Music and Musicians daily live show. For all of our current and future events, please go to our websites, and you can see on the screen virtualconcerthalls.com, progressivemusicians.com, centerspacificcompetition.com, colorchestra.com. We have many collaborators and partners working with us, sharing the passion for bringing music and musicians and its life stories to all of you.
Absolutely. And with that, a big thanks to you, Anna, for being an incredible part of the show and being some of the brains behind these kind of productions as well. And with that, we'll see you all for part 11, the last part in our documentary series on Beethoven 5. I'm excited.
Which will be followed by documentary series on other symphonies. I'm not disclosing which one comes next. We'll talk about it in the next episode. The next episode 11 is the final and concluding episode of Beethoven Symphony number 5. And thank you, Chris, for being a wonderful host to these programs.
Amazing. See you all.
See you all. Bye.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Expressiva Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.